we challenge the guys to start fast, and we definitely did that in all phases. Had a big punt return for a touchdown, and then defense getting the turnover and offense being able to capitalize and hit a couple of big plays with Easton in the run game. So once we were able to get ahead, I felt the guys were pretty comfortable, and so ended up getting a lot of guys in that second half. Obviously, challenges continue to build this week, and we're excited that with the difficult schedule we have had, and with the adversity that we face with injuries and stuff, that we've put ourselves in a position at least to play for another conference championship. So we have to have a great week. South Dakota is a really good football team that has beaten some teams in northern Iowa and Illinois State that I know are really good, and then South Dakota State, I know they played those guys really well, and we'll have our hands full, and we have to have a great week of preparation in order to go down there and be successful. Well, questions?
You mentioned the Missouri Valley title. How much is that talked about this week?
Well, it'll be talked about tonight in our team meeting, and then it'll kind of, from a coaching staff standpoint, it'll go away, and we'll just focus on each day. But I know the players late in the week will talk about it when they have their own captain's meeting of how important it is, because that's the goal that we set out every year. Is even when you date it back to starting in winter conditioning, is what can you do and get yourself in position to compete for the Valley title, because if you do that, then a lot of things get set up.
Do you sense the guys remember this was their loss last year? Remember where things fell apart last year on this one against them, what they did against you? Well,
it's a different coaching staff, but some familiarity with the players. They know obviously that they were the team that beat us. It's I think different schemes and stuff, but we never talk a lot about the revenge factor in stuff in this program, but I know that the guys know that they're capable of coming there whipping us if we're not ready to play and if we don't have a great game plan.
Chris, you surprised that 7-1 has potential to win the Valley this year, and after seeing everything play out?
Yeah, I really am, especially looking at a lot of people's non-conference and stuff, and can you survive with injuries and those things, and to have three teams essentially with one or two losses, I think is pretty impressive, and there wasn't that maybe that huge upset in that early season, mid-season, and so it shows you the parity in the league, and every game, even this week, has great impact on postseason implications.
Anything new on the injury front coming out of Saturday?
No, I know Caleb Butler. He sat out the second half with a shoulder injury. They're getting an MRI on him, but we're hopeful that he'll be all right. King, we precautionary sat out, and same with Trey, so they'll be ready to go.
Bruce Anderson?
We're hoping he's going to practice some this week. Now, whether or not that means he's going to play and play a significant role, I'm not sure, but we were cleared to have him practice starting tonight, so we'll see how he progresses the next 3 or 4 days. I know he's been working hard with Coach Kramer, so I know his conditioning will be okay. It's just a matter of him having confidence and cutting and moving and stuff, but from what we understand, he will be available.
How did the rotation go at defensive tackle? I know you had a lot of situational different lineups depending on that sort of thing. How did you feel that went with the 70 plays that were played throughout the game?
Well, early on when the game was really on the line, it was more Steidel, Grant Morgan, and then spell those guys with Blake and Jack, and then as we got a handle on the game, we started to play Blake and Jack a lot more. We had Caleb Butler in there a decent amount. We had Cole Karch in there a decent amount, trying to get him some snaps. He's normally a defensive end, but we've kind of flipped him to defensive tackle some, just because that's where we're a little thin at, and we have such great depth at defensive end. And I thought Cole did some really good things as a defensive tackle. So, this week will be a big week for Cole and for Blake and Jack and whoever else is in there to see how, if they understand the game plan, they understand what we're asking them to do within our system, that they can help us and give some of those D tackles a rest. Now, this is a really fast tempo offense, so you have to be careful about your substitution or they're going to get you caught with 12 guys on the field.
Does it help on punt coverage to have an athlete like Fish as the long snapper?
Well, you're kind to call Fish an athlete. No, Fish is a tremendous athlete. He did a great job, and he, to Fish's credit, he's worked at it extremely hard. You'll see a couple days during the week where he'll be working with Coach Kramer's staff doing patterns during the middle of practice to keep his conditioning up and to keep his intensity up. And Fish has really done a nice job of. We usually have him build the fence, and then everybody else kind of falls in off of that. And he did, he made 2 really good tackles. The last one, where they end up losing maybe 7 or 8 yards. Fish was really the last line of defense, or they'd have potentially had a pretty good return. And I was really happy with Fish. But there's a guy that's really worked at it to be successful and to be a guy that he just doesn't want to be known as a long snapper. And now nobody has to block him. They're trying to block him. He avoided a couple blocks on both the tackles he had. He's doing a great job.
Coach, what are some of the keys when you face a dual threat quarterback like Strebler?
Well, you need to keep him in the core, and that's where he's beat a lot of guys is outside on the perimeter with design runs, and probably where he's hurt people more is on scrambles with just people running routes and nobody protecting the quarterback. And so, you have to be smart of how much man coverage you play because everybody's backs are turned. But he throws it well enough. If you're just going to sit in easy zones, he's going to pick you apart. So we have to do a really good job of containing him, keeping him in the core, keeping him in the cup, and then getting a lot of hats because it's not like you're dealing with a small quarterback. He's built like a linebacker, and he's an exceptional athlete and runs really well. We have to get some really good hits on him to try to hope to slow him down a little bit. You're not going to stop him. You're just trying to slow him down.
Remember about Bauma last year? He seemed to get loose in the game against you guys. That he's slippery, isn't he?
I've always been impressed with him. He's a guy that is a senior, but he's played a long time there. I know he's had his injuries, but I've always been really impressed with him. I think he's a physical runner, but he has that ability to slash and cut through defenses. And you put he and the quarterback back there, you have 2 really athletic, physical guys, and so. I know they've been rotating their running back position, but for us, we have to stop the run. I mean, that's been our philosophy forever, and we have to try to make those guys one-dimensional, which is difficult.
You said on Saturday you're going to take a look at the tape to kind of evaluate the depth. Guys, anybody stick out to you?
Well, both Tuscas. Now, Jared's been here for a while, but Jared's playing at a really high level. And then I was really pleased with Derek Tusca as a redshirt freshman, how athletic and how well he runs and how he understands what we're doing. Those 2 guys jump out at me. And then in his limited plays, we were really pleased with Brock Robbins being closer than what we thought going into that game, where we thought maybe we could get him 5 or 6 snaps coming off the long injury, but he played really fast and was really physical, and so I think Brock will hopefully see more time this week.
Have you gotten your young guys in the game as much as you would have liked this year? With the non-conference schedule, every game was close, and the conference schedule, other than this one, maybe they were all fairly close games.
No, we have not, and that's been a real concern for us, not only in those guys' development, but more importantly, that fourth quarter, at least a guy like MJ and Trey didn't play, and they're not getting beat on, and our guys' legs are tired physically, mentally and emotionally. I know we're a little bit tired. Not everybody else is in the country. I understand that, but it was just good to get those guys a break, let some of those other guys play, and it'd be nice if we were evaluating these guys from game 3 to see where they could help us in game 5, 6, 7. Well, that was game 10 when those guys finally got significant snaps. And that's that was, I kind of figured this was going to happen this year with the schedule that we had out in front of us, that we weren't going to be in any blowout games, and in the non-conference and then in the conference season. It's just everybody's so good, you just never know if you're going to have one.
Do you think that this team is building like past NDSU teams have? A year ago, you kind of see things starting to roll from outside going late in the
Well,
season.
two things where we're building. We're hoping to get a few guys back from a health standpoint. Brock Robbins will really help us. Eric Perkins will really help us on special teams. Bruce Anderson's a difference maker. If we can get him back, it helps us on special teams. It helps us on the offensive run game, as well as some of our jets and some of our wheels and stuff. Where we're finally, I think, making really good progress is on special teams, and we've noticed that the last 2 weeks. We made some real big personnel changes 2 weeks ago to our kickoff coverage team, and that has played really well for us. And then, getting those guys to understand that, we got to make a big play on punt return or kickoff return against Indiana State, because they'd been susceptible to it. And then those guys seeing that, hopefully will give them some confidence that, that's going to flip a game. Let's be honest, we don't win a national championship last year without great special teams play. In every game we had, whether it was a punt, whether it was a kick, whether it was a kick return, punt return, or coverage, that's the difference when you get late in the season, and that's where I think we are having some great growth.
The fact you're a dome team, does that make a difference when you go to other domes?
I think it helps us. And the fact of, we're gonna work with the noise and deal with the noise. Well, our offense deals with the noise every Thursday and Wednesday when the defense has the noise on at practice, even when we're playing in the Fargo Dome, because our offense has to deal with it just as well. But I remember a couple years ago it was really loud down there, and I don't know what their crowd was. I don't know what the crowd will be this weekend. I assume on Senior Day it'll be pretty good. I think it helps us, being that we are a dome team, but you still have to be able to get your snap counts and your silent counts and get your motions and shifts. Those are the ththings that we have to make sure that we're on, we stay on par.
What is the difference between outside and inside then?
Just the magnitude of how loud it is. You'd ask the guys, they thought Kennick was really loud, but they could still hear a lot of things. Even our offense, when we have the noise in the Fargo Dome on a practice on Thursday, Easton has to go with silent snap count because you can't hear anything. It just, it bounces off the ceiling and stuff. And I know with South Dakota, it's a little smaller dome. I think that the noise, carries better in there and it bounces quicker back onto the field. It's always been difficult in the X amount of times I've been there, because they've always been there with a good crowd to get your plays off with the noise.
With Bryce Mesner, he's wearing 98 in the first half, 62. Can you literally switch his jersey every series if you had to? I mean, how does that work?
Come on, Ryan. Yes, you can.
Okay.
But he's a tight end for us right now. But when the game got out of hand and we wanted to get Plankers and Big Zach out, we flipped him.
Okay.
And
you can do that during the course of the game.
Yeah, you can do that during the course of a game. One team we played this year, I can't remember who it was, had the same situation and didn't have time to do it. Now that really screws with the defense when you have, a 64 and then a 98 at guard, and you're thinking, well, should we move the front? And it's confusing, but no, you can do that.
On paper, a hit like Pierre had in the first quarter just looks like a completed pass for 5 yards. But what does something like that do for a team? I mean, it really kind of ended the game.
Well, and Pierre's had some big hits, and all those are critical, whether it was the hit on a crossing route or MJ or Greg hitting the quarterback. Those things, it gets the crowd into it, gets everybody else into it, and we really harp on yards after catch, yards after contact, and I think Pierre's one of the best ones of being able to eliminate some of those crossing routes, and no, it lifts the entire football team.
How's a true freshman class been in practice heading into the last regular season game?
Been really good. Most of those guys have been healthy. There was a couple guys that we've lost. Obviously, Braden Lund we lost, and Trevor Height we lost, and Felix Dixon we haven't had yet this year. So we've had some injuries. Been really impressed with the young offensive linemen like we have all year long. Not only the scholarship kids, but the walk-ons as well have been really good. The same as the defensive line. If you'd say, if there's one guy that stands out every day at practice, it's Jabril Cox. Jabril Cox is as good a freshman player as we've ever had here. Now, does that translate to him understanding what we're doing on defense, being able to fit within our scheme? We'll find out in the spring. But as far as just athletically getting off of blocks, knocking balls down, levering things, being a kind of a menace on kickoff, offense, wherever it may be, that's as good a freshman as I've seen here.
Are you keeping any of the young defensive tackles just abreast of, hey, if one more guy goes down, we might have to pull your shirt? You're just not in that mindset?
We're not in that mindset at all. I would really not want to do that, and with as many defensive ends as we have, I wouldn't think we would have to.
You said Darius Anderson was the best running back you've ever seen in practice. Just, devil's advocate.
Well, and Darius was really good on scout team. I'll say that.
Chris, what did you make of the Iowa win over Michigan on Saturday night?
Being from Iowa, I was really happy for him, and what a great environment. I only was able to watch the fourth quarter, but that's a tough place to play, and tougher at night. And I know Coach Ferentz is an unbelievable football coach that always is going to have his guys ready to play, and those guys rose to the occasion. And it's college football. Anybody can beat anybody. I watched the ending of the Clemson game, rooting for Clemson, and they didn't get it done, and that's reality. There's such good football teams out there, and the ball doesn't bounce your way. You turn the ball over, any of those things happen, and that's the thing that's so great about this game.
What can you say about Bob and him moving from Western to South Dakota this year, and what he's been able to do there in his first year?
Well, he's good friends with Coach Entz. He coached Matt in college, and I have a great amount of respect for Coach Nielsen. Extremely disciplined, well-coached football team. Every time you play him, gets everything out of his team. He'll get his own players in there, more of those guys and he brought a lot of coaches with him. I know this. He's one of the best football coaches in the landscape of college football, because he's done it at every level, and that's something that's really hard when you've done it at every level and had the success that he's had. And he's one of the most respected guys in our league, without question.
Being that you're in the playoffs, so all but assured to be in the playoffs, any kind of statement on Tuesday's rankings from you?
No, we have to control what we can control, and that's just this week and our ability to prepare the best we can so our guys can go 1-0 for the week.